The first point to think about is using conjunctions to join two shorter sentences together to make a longer sentence. So can you say a longer sentence using one of these words? Next, because, so, before, if, then, until, although. And if you don't know the meaning of these words, it's time to think about learning the meaning and looking at how you could practice putting those into sentences. Instead of, that's something we'd probably use when we're speaking quite a lot. I'd rather have chocolate instead of meringue today, please. Meanwhile, I don't usually use this when I'm speaking, but I would use it within writing because it's an excellent conjunction to join some ideas together. So let's have a look at two short sentences and think about what conjunctions would we use to join those two sentences. So you have when, because, until, although. Jane reached for her coat. It was raining. So what would you join those two short sentences together with? Perhaps you could think about a reason for Jane reaching for her coat. So what about although? The two short sentences, Jane reached for her coat, it was raining. So we need to remember to say it as one sentence to see if it makes sense. Jane reached for her coat although it was raining. Does that make sense? No. What about Jane reached for her coat, it was raining, and looking at the conjunction because? If you were writing it or saying it, you'd have to put it together as one sentence to see if it makes sense. Jane reached for her coat because it was raining. Does that make sense to you? Yes. So that would be the correct conjunction to use. Jane reached for her coat. It was sunny. And you see, we've gone back to looking at, could we actually use the conjunction although? So let's put it into a complete sentence. Jane reached for her coat although it was sunny. Does it make sense? Yes, it does. Oh, here's a picture of my cat's socks, and we have some conjunctions there. Then, until, while, if, before. Now, when you're looking at developing your English and when you're learning to add extra words into your sentences, you need to think about what does the word signal to the reader the idea for you joining the two sentences together. So let's have a look at what two sentences we have for socks. My cat snored. Yes, he used to do that a lot, you know, when he was asleep. He was asleep, so we need a conjunction that's going to join those two ideas together and make sense. So which conjunction would you use? My cat snored. He was asleep. What about using then? Remember, you say it as a sentence. My cat snored, then he was asleep. Does that make sense? No, it doesn't, because my cat was asleep already when he was snoring. So I need to find a conjunction that means already or at the same time. My cat snored, he was asleep. Wonder if until will work. So again, you say it as one sentence. My cat snored until he was asleep. Does it make sense? No, it doesn't, because my cat was already asleep and I haven't found the conjunction yet that means at the same time. What about if? My cat snored, he was asleep. The same structure, we say it as a whole sentence. Remember, you write it as one sentence or you say it as one sentence to decide, does it make sense? Is this the correct word that I want to join these two ideas with? Oh, I've actually got my cat's name there as David. David snored if he was asleep. That's definitely not what my cat was doing. I wouldn't use if. So does it make sense to me? No. I'm still looking for that connective, which means at the same time. My cat snored, he was asleep. Would you use before? Let's follow the same structure and say it as a sentence. My cat snored before he was asleep. Didn't I tell you that the cat was already asleep when he was snoring? So for me, does it make sense? No. My cat snored, he was asleep. Let's have a look at while. Do you remember? We say it as a whole sentence. My cat snored while he was asleep. Does that make sense? Yes, it does, because do you know while means at the same time. So when you're choosing conjunctions, you need to be asking yourself, what is the use of that word? Because all of the conjunctions in English have different use, a different job, and while is telling you that something is happening at the same time. So that's an excellent sentence. Well done if you got that correct. So we're going to have a look at the spider spun a web. He could catch a fly. Remember, we start with two short sentences and we think about, how do I want to join that sentence together? So we've got to decide on the connectives we're going to use. And for these two sentences, we have when, until, so, and after. We use the same structure, say or write the sentence. The spider spun a web when he could catch a fly. Does that make sense? No, it's not when, is it? So what word could it be? Which conjunction could I use? What am I really trying to say about the web and the fly? Am I trying to say that the reason the spider spun a web was because he needed to catch a fly, but I haven't been given the word because, so I can't use that one. So let's try so, because so is the same as so that. Remember, we say it as one sentence. The spider spun a web so he could catch a fly. Does that make sense? Yes. So that would be the correct connective conjunction to use.